All right, welcome again, everybody. It's trying to help somebody go in through a mobile device and they were looking for a passcode. I have a webinar ID. I don't see a passcode. If anybody knows where to find that, feel free to put it in the chat box. All right, so we are at 12:03 and there are about 48 of us in here. It's so good to see you all. My name is Linda Adams. And I work for Staff and Faculty Health and Wellbeing Program, doing nutrition projects, the diabetes prevention program, things like that. And I'm so fortunate to have students like Kirby working with me. They do a lot of work for us on blog posts and nutrition content and at the UC Davis Farmers Market. So I'm pleased to have Kirby with us today, presenting again. Some of you may have seen her earlier Swap and Savor workshop. This one is going to go into a little more depth. Just so you know, the webinar is being recorded and you've all been placed on mute. And we will be sending out the webinar slides along with evaluation survey link directly after the presentation. And we will be forwarding the webinar recording as well. So I think that's all of the housekeeping. So we'll dive right in and do feel free to raise your hand. I'm going to try to watch. If you want to talk, I can unmute you from my end. Otherwise, the chat box and the Q&A work. So Kirby Lee is with us today. She is a student in clinical nutrition. And so I had never heard of capsule cooking until Kirby mentioned it. So I'm really excited also to learn. So welcome, Kirby. Thank you so much for coming today.
Hi, it's a good thing that you didn't hear anything about it because this is kind of a brainchild of mine. Yeah, so as Linda said, my name is Kirby, and today I will be talking a little bit about something called capsule cooking, and you'll see that it'll have a lot of benefits for you and help you achieve a lot of any goals that you might have in terms of food and in terms of saving money or even helping the planet. So let's get on with it. Okay. So what is capsule cooking? It generally means a method of cooking where you're using a collection of recipes that use a similar range or even the same ingredients and seasonings. And you'll see that why this was a brainchild of mine. I am a college student. Money's tight because tuition, right? And I'm also very busy because I'm a full-time student and I, do a lot of work outside of my schoolwork. And on top of that, I'm mostly vegetarian. I do eat meat, but when I don't eat meat, I usually eat a lot of carbohydrates. That's just a little bit of background of where capsule cooking was like inspired from. And capsule cooking actually helped me bring a lot more balance to my life and help me like make healthy eating and efficient shopping and cooking happen. So some of these benefits include these things. So like I said earlier, it's really cost efficient. So it kind of pairs into the reducing food waste. Every penny that I spend on my groceries actually ends up on my plate and it gives back to me, right? We always want to avoid the situation where you have like a whole bag of broccoli that just goes bad and it goes to the trash. And you can look at it from the other perspective that you're helping the environment by reducing the amount of food that goes into your trash can. And for the busyness part, I will admit that capsule cooking requires a little bit of work at the beginning, but once you settle into it and you get used to it, right, get into that groove, it actually lessens a lot of the time that you're spending planning your meals and grocery shopping. And I'll get more into that later on. And it really does motivate me to get my, fruits and veggies in because a lot of the times cooking carbs are easy. It's just easier for me. So I don't want to ever be stuck in a rut where I know I should be eating my veggies, but I just don't know like what I should make, how I should make it. And it just makes eating healthier and including my veggies and fruits more convenient into my daily life. And of course, when I'm not again, I didn't mention this, but I'm not a very great cook. So there's a very limited range of stuff that I know how to cook. And that sometimes that means that I get bored with the food because I'm making the same things, like I'm on rotation, right? But capsule cooking has really pushed me to explore new recipes, new flavors, new methods of cooking. And it definitely has changed that. And, you know, overall, you can see that capsule cooking can help you achieve a lot of goals from many different perspectives, from an environmental perspective, from a budget perspective, from a time perspective, or just exploration perspective. It can really help with a lot. So keep that in mind. I don't know, maybe do some self-reflection, see where you fall among all of these goals that you could be achieving with capsule cooking. So I really tried my best to make this as simple and painless as possible because there is a little bit of work that is required in the beginning. So I ended up breaking it down into 4 steps, and we're going to go through them. And I actually did this process myself throughout a week, so you could actually see it happening. Of course, I already kind of have the capsule cooking thing going on already, so I tried to make a mini version of what I already have. So what I did first was I assessed my eating and cooking habits, and then I took inventory of what's in my fridge and in my pantry. And then I did some research for some recipes. And at the very end, I drafted a master recipe list and shopping list. So we're going to go through that. First step, assessing, right? I wanted to help you, you know, guide your thinking a little bit when you're doing this for your own collection of recipes for capsule cooking. And so you'll see a lot of these guiding questions, and you can literally answer them one after another, and it'll get you to where you want to be. So how and what do you eat? What foods do you eat often? Any flavors or cuisines that you enjoy? Any, you know, how many meals do you eat in a day? Do you snack? Or do you have any diet goals or restrictions? And then in terms of your cooking habits, these are some questions that can help you figure that out. And that includes like how many times you cook in a day or in a week even. Do you meal prep? I know some people, meal prep is, you know, really popular. And how many days ahead do you meal prep? So hopefully these will help you design and like shape your reflections so you can really get the most information out of these things, so you can more closely customize your collection of recipes, right? And I did this. Imagine this is my perfect, glorious handwriting. It's not this pretty, but I literally answered it word for word based on the questions that I listed in the previous slide. So here I said, what foods do you eat often, right? And I answered, I eat a lot of pasta because I enjoy that, rice dishes and soups. Okay. I also really like celery, carrots, and mushrooms. And then the next question was flavors, cuisines that I enjoy. I don't really have any preferences, and that's okay, right? But if you did, you could be writing down like, I like Thai food, right? So maybe that will be something that you'll keep in mind when you're looking for your recipes. Maybe you'll include a Thai recipe. And onward, how many meals do I have in a day? Snacks, restrictions. I usually have 2 cooked meals. For breakfast, I usually do overnight oats. It's kind of a thing that I do every single day, so I don't really have to think about breakfast. But I do have 2 cooked meals a day, and then maybe a snack, right? Something to consider. And then I'm also mostly vegetarian, like I said. And then for the second half of the questions for this part, I said that I cook at least once a day. Usually I always cook at dinner, and then sometimes I cook enough for lunch the next day, which means that I'm cooking 1 to 2 times a day. So I'm showing you this because I think it is easiest to plan your capsule cooking collection when you have written it down and it's clear in front of you, because it can get a little bit like confusing and complex, but this can really help you simplify that. So next, you've kind of done a little bit of self-reflection, right? A little bit of thought to help you guide your later work as you're planning. This next step is taking inventory. And this is where, here are some more guiding questions. Is there anything you already have at home, right? Is there anything you need to get rid of? And you can think back on your, you know, previous times cooking or grocery shopping. What are some things that get tossed out before you eat it? And the reason why this is a step is because you actually have a lot of stuff hiding in your pantry probably, and you've kind of forgotten about it. And if they're shelf stable, they probably haven't gone bad, and they actually can still give you the benefits, right? That it holds. And also for the question, is there anything you need to get rid of soon? That is trying to salvage whatever you can, right? Get the most bang for your buck. So this is the step you're trying to make sure you're not leaving anything behind and not letting anything go wasted, right? So of course, look in your refrigerator, look in your freezer. The freezer is always full of stuff. Sometimes you forget, and and your pantry and cabinets. And I wrote at the bottom, take note of any spices and seasonings and sauces, because that can help you pick your recipes later on, because you already have those things. So maybe you can utilize them, right? And I think everybody has some pantry staples, and those are also helpful to write down and consider when you're picking your recipes. So I did this for myself. These, keep in mind, I don't really have a lot in my pantry because I move from apartment to apartment a lot, but these are some of the sauces, seasonings, and stuff that are constantly in my fridge or in my cabinets. So you can see I have soy sauce, I have miso paste, and I have something called oyster sauce. I got a couple hot sauces, ketchup, broth, honey, and tomato paste, and Italian seasoning. Yeah, so this is just staples that I constantly have and I could be using, right? And again, you don't have to have these things. This is just what I happen to have. So your, layout could be very different from mine, and that is completely okay. This is just stuff you should keep in mind that you do have and that you could use, and it could save you a little bit of money. You're not going out buying all of these new seasonings, right? I also have a spice rack. I couldn't show it in here, but that also I think is a very great investment when you're trying to formulate your own little collection of capsule cooking recipes. It gives you a lot more flexibility in what you can make. Um, so I did mention earlier any pantry staples. I always have these 3 carbohydrates in my pantry. Like no matter what, I buy these in bulk and they're always there. So I thought I would mention these because you'll actually see some of these come up in the recipes that I'll share later on if you stick around. So of course we got our whole grains, right? And I love my pasta, right? So I got my whole wheat linguine. And here are the random stuff that I found. I found a random can of Spam. I don't know where it came from, quite honestly, but I thought it hasn't expired. So let's try and use it, right? That probably saved me, what, $2? Every penny counts. I'm just gonna walk into this with that mindset. And then this pasta, this box of ring pasta, I think a housemate of mine was gonna make pasta salad and they just never did, and it was just sitting there and they said, yeah, go for it. So I'm going to use it, right? And yes, I'm mostly vegetarian, but I do like shrimp, and I had this forgotten bag, not really forgotten, it's been a couple weeks maybe, of just frozen shrimp. There were more than 3, but I just chose to show 3. And I thought, I think these are things that I should, be paying extra attention to. And I actually wrote it down on my list, right? So this was the list that we had before. And I said, I want to use up Spam, pasta, and shrimp. And keep in mind, this is an optional step, right? You may not have anything that you want to get rid of already, but this is something you should be constantly asking yourself every week, even after you have settled into your capsule cooking habits. Because every single week you'll have some kind of leftover thing from the next week or the week before, and it's just something good to consider. And I'm just trying to show that, I'm settled into capsule cooking, but I still have some little tweaks that I have to make between weeks so I can actually get through all the food that is sitting in my kitchen. So I told you, I made a big fuss about you writing it down like this. And the reason why is because it actually helps you do your research. And I'm going to decipher this a little bit for you. But the reason why I ask you about your cooking habits is, I want you to consider that when you're making your portions. So if you are a meal prepper, you just make, you multiply these recipes by like 3. So then you have enough meals for the entire week, right? So that's just something for you to think about when you're looking for recipes. Can I just up the portions and then use it for meal prep? And then the stuff I've circled here actually are keywords that you can use when you're putting stuff into Google or putting stuff into the internet when you're looking for recipes, and this can help you narrow down what you're looking for. So since we're talking about research, right? Keeping in mind everything that we've talked about and what you've found in your pantry, in your kitchen, you start looking for your recipes. And I split it up into two methods that you could research for inspiration. Because I know that not everybody's on, the same page about cooking. Some people don't have the time to, or are not interested in it, or like, you know, I just want to make sure I have something for everyone, right? So the first method is just to search and cook, which is basically using some of the keywords that I showed you on this slide, right? You can just search up the ingredients in combination or on its own through Google and YouTube or Pinterest and see what comes up. Just look, take a scroll, you know what I mean? And it literally, what I meant by like searching up the ingredients in combination or alone, like literally just searching up carrots, celery, and mushroom, or with rice, you know what I mean? Or with soup right here. And this page right here should really help. So as you can see, I really enjoy celery, carrots, and mushrooms, and you'll see that is the theme of how I found a lot of my recipes later on. And then this requires no thinking at all. If you find a recipe that interests you and matches up with the ingredients that you have, then you just follow them as they are, right? This is just, a search and go kind of method. But if you are more of a cooking fanatic, right? I have the search and experiment method for you. And basically, you search up dishes regardless of the ingredients. You could still do a little bit of the search with the search and cook with the listing out the ingredients and stuff like that. But this gives you a more broader opportunity to search for different recipes. So some examples is like, I don't know, can mushrooms and pasta go together? So like I searched up mushroom pasta, right? Or can shepherd's pie be vegetarian or vegetarian chili, right? So I started with recipes that I was interested in trying, and then I looked at them, and then I made adjustments to them so that they can help me achieve the goals that I was trying to achieve, which was I want to be able to include carrots, celery, and mushroom or some other ingredient into it, right? And keep in mind when you're doing this method, not all recipes are that easy to adjust. Some of them are more forgiving than others. And what I found personally is stir fries work. It's like you could chuck anything into the pan and it'll taste good, in my opinion. If you have the right seasonings down, which I'll show you in a little bit, you can actually hide a lot of stuff into your stir fries, like everything but the kitchen sink kind of dish. Clear soups, I didn't include it in the recipes that I'll show you later, but miso soups, I can add all kinds of vegetables in it and it still tastes wonderful. And again, you'll see some rice dishes later on that are very flexible and it allows you to actually make these adjustments to help you achieve your goals. I think this is a good place to ask if there's any questions before I move on. I hope that made sense. That was a lot of information.
So if you have questions, you can go ahead and put them in the question box or the chat box. But you can continue now, Kirby.
Okay. There aren't questions. Is that what you said? Okay. As just a final note, when I give you these two methods, it doesn't mean that you only use one or the other. I use both the search and cook method and search and experiment method a little bit equally. Together, I feel like it really helps me make the process of finding recipes and adding them to my collection a lot easier. So keep that in mind. So this is my first recipe, right? I was talking about stir fries, and the reason why I include stir fry first is because I actually knew how to make stir fry to begin with. It was something my mom taught me, right? And it also can include any kind of vegetable. So it's very flexible. It was a good way to start for me. And you can see right here that I have the carrots underlined and the celery and the mushrooms, right? And there's some other ingredients there. And you can also see that I'm also using the condiments or sauces or seasonings that I already have in my pantry, right? And you can also see that I have tofu in here, which I know can scare some people, but I think this is a great gateway method to including more tofu into your diet. And this is so simple because there's some instructions. All right. There's some basic things that you'll see carry out through all of the recipes that I'll show you today. So for the ones that include tofu, I kind of cook them the same way. All right. And this is just a method that I learned from home, right? I just, on a hot pan with some oil, I just fry up each side, as many sides as you want. If I have more time, I do all sides. If I don't have time, I do two sides. And then I just put them aside. Okay, out of mind. And then you kind of have a fresh pan to start with. And you'll also see that I do this a lot, where I have many consecutive steps where I'm chucking in vegetables into the pan, a really big pan. And I cook them in a certain order because for example, I like my celery and broccoli to be more snappy, less soft. So I add it in after the carrots, but I like my carrots soft. So the carrots go in first and they cook for longer, right? So you can also mess around with this order. You can put celery in if you like your celery more soft, right? So you can see this kind of thing happen over and over again in the other recipes as well. And this is just understanding your preference and being able to cook in an order where you get you put in the things that you want softest first, and then you put in the stuff that you want to be a little bit more crunchy at the end. And you cook about 1 to 2 minutes. You can literally just bite, like take stuff from the pan and give it a little crunch and see how you feel about it, and then just keep cooking, depending on whether you thought that was good enough or not. Right. And then here's another step that you might see in some other recipes, deglazing. When you're cooking vegetables, especially in a dry pan, you might feel like you're not actually cooking your vegetables, like they still feel raw. And this actually really helps. Being able to add a couple tablespoons of water into your pan, it actually kind of quickly steams your vegetables, but it keeps the char that you get on it when you're dry cooking your vegetables, right? So you don't feel like you're eating raw veggies, even though you cooked it for a long time. And this also helps with flavor, right? Deglazing your pan helps with flavor, and it helps you fully cook your vegetables. I think that's all I have to say for this.
Kirby,
And yes.
sorry to interrupt.
Mhm.
So a question is, so you have carrots and celery and mushrooms. So would you prepare these like at the beginning of the week? Do you cut them like each time you make it? I mean, could I buy pre-cut?
Yeah, okay. So for me, I don't buy the pre-cut vegetables just because I find that their prices are higher. I usually buy um, all of these things like whole, and I cut them myself right before I cook because I find that that is the best way to keep your food fresh. And that's another tip that I'm glad you brought up because sometimes pre-cut vegetables can go bad faster. And I find that I can make my produce go for a lot longer when you buy them whole. You know, you take a good look at them after you take them home from the grocery store, make sure there aren't any slimy bits or whatever, and then they can keep in your refrigerator for a little bit longer than it would if you just cut everything all at once at the beginning of the week or buy them pre-cut. Um, it's funny that we say, you know, the money thing, but the reason why I love carrots and celery so much is because it's constantly really cheap at my grocery store, and it's like year round, always that price. So in my opinion, if like your goal is to like, you know, do this for your budget, I say avoid buying it pre-cut. But if you're a very busy person, that is definitely something that you can consider. Yeah, it would work fine. But when you're actually cooking, I usually cut everything before I start because especially with stir fries and when you have a hot pan, and you'll see it with all these other recipes, it actually starts moving pretty fast. It won't feel like scary fast, but it's more relaxing to have everything prepared and just have them ready to be dumped into the pan. Also, there's like something on my,
I see.
yeah. Okay.
So also we have a question relating back to the tofu and thinking about how some people who cook it say that you have to like press it, or do you really have to like, how do you do that?
So I do not own a tofu press. I really want to try one, but I find that purchasing firm or extra firm tofu is enough for my preferences. I don't want my tofu to like be so firm that it kind of feels like meat, like chicken. You know what I mean? Like chicken texture. Some people prefer that, and that's completely fine. I think a tofu press is if you really want it to mimic real meat. But if you're not too picky about that, extra firm tofu works just fine. You just cut them up and then fry them. And yeah, just pat them dry before you put them into the pan and you can get a really good crust on it. You can also
So,
bake them.
so
Yeah.
patting it dry works. I didn't even know they made tofu presses.
Yeah. Well, it's really up to you, your preferences for the texture of tofu that you
So there's
enjoy.
no right or wrong way, really.
Yeah, there is really no right or wrong.
Got it.
It's very forgiving. So just don't buy extra soft tofu and expect it to fry up on your pan. I think extra firm is probably your best shot if you don't own a tofu press. So yes, all of these are really good questions. Do we have any others?
Well, there is another question about applying capsule cooking for a family, like cooking for other adults and children.
Very good question. So when you, where's that list? Okay, so when you're making your list, you can put on there how many servings you want, like specifically, like right, where is it? Here, right? You can include, so of course, when you're cooking for more people, you have to cook enough for everybody. And on top of that, this part, the preference part, you can include like, what do the kids enjoy? What do the kids not enjoy, right? So this list is very malleable. Like you can add it, you can add whatever you want to be considered when you're actually doing your research. This is like how you can like lay it out for yourself when you're looking for recipes. And I think it's very possible to actually cook for a family with this because when you have a family, I'm assuming you don't have that much time, right, to be thinking about what you want to cook. It actually saves a lot of time in terms of the planning part, right? And on top of that, for at least the recipes that I show, there's once you do all the cutting, you can actually get the kids involved. And you know, you could like teach them about all of these vegetables. Yeah, honestly, if it's like in terms of like the technical stuff that if that's what you're asking, as in how do I implement it for a family, it's just changing what is on this list. You can include the preferences of yourself, include the preferences of your partner, or include the preferences of your kids, right? And also you can include like specific notes about how much you want to make, right? Do you want to make it for 4 or do you want to make it for just 1, right? The portion size is where it changes. And then, you know, when you do your research, you can literally search up kid friendly. Like that could be something that you keep in mind. You want a kid friendly recipe, right? And if this is confusing, you'll see what I mean later on. Yeah. Does that kind of answer the question? I know that was a really roundabout way of answering that, but yeah. Okay. Can I move on? Is that okay?
Mhm.
Okay, awesome. So research, right? And this is my first recipe. A lot of basics here that I've went over, right? We've got the deglazing, we've got the general, everything goes in, but in a certain order for texture going on here. We talked about how we can cook tofu, right? And how we can treat our tofu for specific textures. Yeah, and all of these other recipes, the reason why you see them in here is actually because these are ingredients that are already in my original capsule cooking like shopping list. So I always have these with me and you'll see what I mean in a second. But as you're looking at recipes, you'll start seeing like, oh, these vegetables reoccur over and over again together. Maybe that is an ingredient I should add to my list, right? So it's just looking at the ingredients list and looking at the cooking instructions and seeing if that fits with your goal. So I guess since we were talking about the family question, this is, you know, I include the serving size here. I actually did this with my housemate. So all of these meals I cooked for 2. So I made 2 servings for this one, right? And this also could mean that I'm making 2 servings for myself, one for dinner and one for lunch the next day, right? So this is where I can make changes. And the next one is chicken noodle soup, right? When you think of carrots and celery, I think of chicken noodle soup. And this also used the ring pasta, right? Like it goes well inside the soup. It's like it fits on your spoon when you're eating it, right? So this is where I ended up using the ring pasta. And I did not include chicken in this, and it still tasted great because I had chicken broth. Yeah. And again, I have the seasonings for my spice rack. I also have a spicy version. I didn't mention it on the other one, but I do have a spicy version of that. And again, you see that I did that everything all in a specific order. So I added the carrots in, I want them softest. And then the celery, I want them a little less soft. And then mushrooms don't take very long. And I also have corn, frozen corn, and they're very tiny, a lot of surface area, so it doesn't take very long to cook. And then, yeah, so this is basically what I want to talk about for this recipe. But this had 4 servings. So on this day, I think me and my housemate were saying, we're busy tomorrow, so let's make enough for tonight for the both of us and tomorrow for lunch for the both of us. So this is why it ended up being 4 servings, right? And with capsule cooking, you'll get better at this as you go along. But you'll find that it's actually really easy to change the serving size when you're working with vegetables because you just add more. And when you have a soup base or a sauce recipe to start with, it doesn't matter how much you add of the vegetables because you could just add more seasoning. Does that make sense? So like for this, I still used 1 can of, or like 1 big can of chicken broth, but I just had more vegetables in it. So it had a little bit less broth, but it was still enough for us to make 4 servings. Does it make sense? So of course, some recipes work better for this than others, but I find that soups are very easy to do this with because you just add more water, right? And then you add more seasoning or add more broth. Yeah.
Nicole points out in the chat box too that many online recipes have like that little box. You can tell it how many servings and
Yeah.
voila, it makes
Yeah.
the ingredients. Yeah.
Yeah, you can also multiply it yourself if they don't have
Yeah.
that function, right? Like if it originally serves like 2, you can multiply it by 3, right? And you'll have 6. Or if it was like serving 8, then you can divide it by 2, right? So just keep in mind how when you're cooking and who you're cooking for and how much you want to be cooking, right? So this next one, I use the Spam. And this is another recipe that I never made myself, but like when I was first starting, but it was something that I also learned is very flexible, right? It helps me get rid of my veggies actually really fast and any leftover eggs. So as you can see, I have the Spam. I didn't end up using all of it. I used little bits of it throughout the week that I didn't show here because we don't have enough time to be going through all of that. But I used some of the Spam, I used some leftover eggs, and of course, you see the carrot, celery, and mushrooms, right? The broccoli shows up again and the corn shows up again. And this is how broccoli and corn actually got added into my list of ingredients for my capsule cooking collection because I noticed that it can fit in a lot of things, right? And you can see right here that, or quinoa. Fried rice could also be fried quinoa. If you went to my last workshop, I talked a lot about making fried quinoa instead of fried rice. But this also works very well. So this is me experimenting and it actually worked out, right? So little things you can try when you're doing your capsule cooking. So you have more variety, right, in your collection. And again, with the spices, you'll see that I did everything in at a specific order again. And you'll see that for the proteins, I like, you know how the tofu I cooked at the beginning, I fried them and then I set them aside. I did that again with my Spam and my eggs. And usually this is a very good tip when you're cooking proteins with vegetables because proteins and vegetables take different times to cook. and you don't want to overcook one or the other. So what I found is easiest for me to control, because I'm not a great cook, right? I heat up and fry up all my proteins first and set them aside and add them back in when my veggies feel perfect, right? So everything is cooked to the right texture or consistency or appearance. And that, I think, helped me incorporate more proteins into my dishes, because it's just something you add in at the end, right? Next, I had vegetarian chili soup. I made a mistake for this recipe, and this is why it's a soup and not an actual chili. When I found this recipe, I really liked it because I've never actually made my own chili. And I found this vegetarian chili, and the person on YouTube, right, who I found when I was doing my research, said that you could chuck anything in here. Honestly, like, you could chuck anything in here and it will disappear. I actually tried this recipe again, and I hid zucchini in there and it tasted just fine. So this is another very forgiving recipe. But my mistake happened is that I am too busy and I didn't let it cook long enough. So it was watery. Like, the consistency was not thick like that you think of when you think of chili. So it ended up being more soup-like, but with a chili flavor. And I actually liked it better, and I kept it that way. And I thought I would share with you, because sometimes you could really own your mistakes, right? And it'll taste wonderful nonetheless, right? Just got to keep your mind very open. Um, and this is the end product of that, right? Uh, Again, you see that I did the everything in method, and you can see the broth going in. You can always add more broth or less broth based on how many vegetables you add in. And then next, this is actually, in my opinion, very smart, because the ingredients are almost the same as the fried rice, but it tastes completely different. So of course I have the frozen shrimp that I was trying to get rid of, right? And this is replacing the spam and the egg protein, but there is still a protein in this, right? You still have the carrot, celery, and mushrooms. There's bell pepper in this, but there's also frozen corn, and you know what I mean? It's a very similar recipe. And I think this is a perfect example of recipes that go together in a capsule cooking collection. All right. So things that are taste completely different, but use a very similar range of ingredients. And again, you can switch this out switch out the rice for quinoa, and you have a spicy version. And again, with the spices and the stuff that I already had in my kitchen. And this is the last time I'll point it out. I'm sure that I said it enough, but here it is again with what order I want things in, right? And then this is like a semi deglaze. You stir in everything and then you add water, right? So you cook everything fully with the steam that is created by the water, and you deglaze the pan right there. Yeah, and again, I cook the protein separately because I'm not great at cooking protein, and it's easier for me to control my cooking when I cook it separately and just add it in at the very end. Yeah, and this is also another 4-serving recipe because I'm a busy woman and I couldn't cook twice. So this was a meal prep meal. And this last one was one of my favorites out of all of these. I've never done this before. This is actually a discovery I made as I was, doing all of this in preparation for this workshop. I had potatoes left over from a curry recipe, a Japanese curry recipe that I was trying. And it was like a 5-pound bag of potatoes, and it's been sitting there, and I know it needs to go, right? So I made mashed potatoes out of it, right? But I also want to somehow finish and make sure I finish all my carrot, celery, and mushrooms. So I looked up shepherd's pie because I knew that there was potatoes and shepherd's pie, and I wanted it to be vegetarian. So I searched up vegetarian shepherd's pie, and then this came up on YouTube. Again, you'll hear me mention YouTube a lot because I'm a very visual person, and when I'm reading recipes, it just doesn't sound as appealing as me seeing it. So you'll hear, that's why I keep mentioning YouTube, but I found this also on YouTube. And this is another recipe that I found was actually extremely versatile. So I chucked in, carrot, celery, and mushrooms. I also was able to put in peas, corn, and a lot more spinach than I thought I could hide in this. So if you have like spinach that is like going slimy or like it's about to go bad, this is a great way to get rid of it. You don't even taste it when it's in there. And I actually had one random can given to me of chicken gravy from my housemate from Thanksgiving. And they were like, please use it or do something with it. So I was like, okay, I experimented. I did not know if this was going to work. Usually you would make a flour and like broth mix to thicken up your filling for this recipe. But because chicken gravy already had that thick consistency, I was like, okay, what if I just skip making the flour mix and just put the gravy in, right? And I'm not adding any chicken to this, so it will add chicken flavor, right? So I ended up trying it and actually gave this really nice and creamy texture to the filling. And that was another discovery I made. So again here, if you don't have gravy, you can follow the original recipe. But that was just another way of me adapting to what I had, which is something you should be doing every week, no matter what recipes you have already settled on in the beginning, right? This is a constant thing you're kind of doing in the back of your mind every single week before you go to the grocery store, every single night before you cook dinner. Just taking inventory and knowing what is in your kitchen. Again, we have the same methods that I've been using, and this one actually, I put it in the oven. This is one of the few oven recipes that I have. And this is a personal favorite of mine. So I had miso that you buy in a big container, but you don't really need a crazy amount. A little bit goes a long way. So I really was trying to get through it, and I kind of was stumped as to what else I could possibly make with miso beyond miso soup. So I searched up miso pasta. I just like shot in the dark miso pasta, and this came up, right? And on top of that, it was very flexible with adding vegetables. So I was like, okay, that's a winner chicken dinner, right? I looked into it and I found that it was perfect for the goals I was trying to achieve. And you can see I have the ingredients that I want to include, and it's cut differently. This is another tip I want to mention. When you're doing capsule cooking, it is very important to pick recipes where you're cutting your ingredients differently, because it gives you a different texture, it gives you a different experience, and it keeps things interesting. So this one, instead of cutting like my carrots into dice bits, it cuts them into like julienne strips, and it actually made it taste different because it softened in a different way and it caramelized in a different way. So keep in mind how you cut things, because that can help you keep things interesting. And this is where my linguine came in, my pantry staple, right? And also the tofu, cooked nearly the exact same way, just cut in a different shape than my tofu stir fry. This is the exact same tofu from the same block of tofu. I use the other half in this. I just cut it into strips and I just put it in there. So again, same methods. So that was all my recipes. And my last step for you is to just copy everything down. Write it into a notebook or put it in your phone where it's accessible. So when you don't know what to cook, you always have a place to go look without having to spend much time looking, right? And eventually when you get more used to this, you actually don't even have to look at it. You just kind of know, oh, I'm looking in my fridge right now. I have a lot of leftover carrots, mushrooms, and celery. I already know a series of recipes that I can use, right, from the top of my head, because they're all very similar, right? And then from this master list of recipes, you can write down the ingredients that you see reoccurring, and that will always be on your grocery list. So it trims down the amount of time you're wondering what produce to buy or what ingredients to include when you're going to the grocery store. So I did it for this mini sample version, right? I have all of these recipes. That's my recipe list. And these are the ingredients that continually reoccur throughout all of them. And if I buy all of these in combination with what I already have in my spice cabinet and in my refrigerator in terms of sauces and seasonings, I can make all of these without thinking. Like I can pick when I want to make it. I can make more of one thing than the other, and it doesn't matter. Like maybe if I don't want chili soup this week, I don't have to do it. But maybe I wanted chicken noodle soup, so I can make it twice, right? Because they all use the same ingredients. It gives you a lot of flexibility to choose what you want to eat. And of course, this is a jumping off point. Feel free to switch out anything or add things, or if zucchini is good this week, then add zucchini to your list and see how you can put it in there. Play around with the portion sizing if you have a bigger family, or if you're treating people, like some people are coming over and they're eating, or you have to pack lunch, right? So this is my actual cooking, capsule cooking collection of ingredients. I buy these every single week and they all disappear by the end of the week because all of my recipes use the same ingredients. And I couldn't fit all of them on there, but there's a lot more. But imagine the variety that you can have when you're constantly working on this. And I don't know, I thought it was ingenious. So go me, but this is a constant work in progress. So yes, there's a lot of work in the beginning, but it does not mean your work ends. And with that, that's all I have for you. I hope I helped you a little bit and got your thinking juices going. If you have any questions, go ahead and share some. You can also email us and visit our website as listed there.
So it sounds like capsule cooking is sort of a way of organizing things into one, I guess, page, right? My problem is keeping track of the recipes. Like I'll remember something I made and then cannot find the recipe. Do you have any tips for like organizing?
Yes. So I guess I should have been more specific, but when you're copying it down, this is so you don't forget, because look at all these recipes I have. I don't remember these all, right? But I have it actually on my phone, like in my notes. And if I don't know what to cook, or if I'm bored with the stuff I'm cooking with from the top of my head, I go back to the list and I actually find things again. So that's a good way of keeping track of your recipes. You can also print it out. Like you could type it into a Word document and then print it out and put it on your fridge. You can, if you have so many recipes, which honestly is a possibility, you could make a binder out of it and keep it in your kitchen. You literally have your own like menu that you could pick from, right? Same with the grocery list. It's just something you can print out and put onto the fridge, or you can keep in your phone or on your computer, somewhere where you're constantly able to access, if that makes sense. And it really does help because the list gets long.
You know, and it's so funny you mentioned binder, because that has been my most recent attempt, is actually printing them out, putting them in a binder, only if I know I like those recipes, right? And only if I didn't mind making them. So great information, Kirby. We have or the old-fashioned index card in a box. Somebody wrote in chat. Exactly.
Yeah.
Somebody has taped a master list inside the cabinet door. Oh, what a great idea.
That is wonderful. Yeah.
So like a master list of recipes as a cue.
Yep.
Love that.
Many
That's
ways.
Liz.
I just wanted to like suggest some things to get you started. And of course, you don't have to follow me word for word, whatever works for you. If you don't
and then
yeah.
Somebody says an electronic recipe box app. That's interesting too. Somebody told me about one, I think it was called Paprika, and I meant to look it up and I haven't looked it up yet. And then Liz also says how yay miso, and that's something that's been on my list to use. It's her new favorite thing. It adds a little bit of salty complexity to almost anything. So I'm going to definitely try that, Liz.
Also, I didn't include this recipe, but I could share it with y'all if y'all are interested. You can actually make a vegetarian. I don't know how to say the word. I don't know, but it tastes like a very creamy, like winey dish when you put miso and mushrooms together. It's actually a very interesting combination because
like I didn't umami.
Yeah, there's no like wine in it, but it tastes like there's wine in it, and it tastes like a really good pasta dish. So yeah, miso has a lot of potential.
Kirby, do you do any seasonal adjustments to your capsules?
Yes, hold on, let me pull up my handy list of ingredients. Okay, so zucchini, not usually here, but it's currently in there because it's been in my grocery store and it's been in good like quality, like it looks really nice. What else? Green beans also not always there, but for some reason lately that is what my grocery store has had. So
Mhm,
these are actually new additions.
mhm.
What else? Yeah.
So I imagine it could really change in, like, when we get into cherry season, which is pretty slim, and then into the stone fruit season.
Hmm.
Mhm,
Yeah. Um, it's very flexible. If you compile a good range of recipes where they are very forgiving in what you add, it actually makes including seasonal foods a lot easier. So like the zucchini wasn't supposed to be in my
mhm.
vegetarian chili soup, but it actually, I just chucked it in there and it worked. So it was another way of including that seasonal produce into my cooking. Yeah.
Awesome. And then Glenda put on some helpful sites to get recipes with how-to videos into chat. Thank you, Glenda. We can all take advantage of those. Cooking is one of those things that some of us love and some of us hate, and
Yeah.
it just has to be done. And I think we've learned from the pandemic that we can do it at home. Yeah,
Yeah.
and after you get yourself organized, it can actually, like, I could see that you could save your capsules and use them again.
Yep.
So it's already done.
In rotation. It is
Yeah.
really helpful. It saves me a lot of time, it saves me a lot
Mhm.
of money, and it's really motivated me to get all of these vegetables into my body in some way, shape, or form. So I think it's a very useful method, and I'm very glad I was able to share it with you all. And hopefully it helps you too.
Thank you so much for coming today, Kirby.
Yeah,
And thank you, everybody, for attending. Like I said, we'll be sending out this slide deck. If you have any questions, you can hang out, and Kirby and I will be here for a couple of minutes. And if not, I hope you sure enjoy the rest of your day. And our email is up on the screen, so you can send us any burning questions that you have about cooking. And we will see you soon. Take good
thank you.
care.